Hey everyone, and welcome to this very special live edition of Explicitly Pro-Life. I'm Kristen Hawkins. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or any other podcasting platform, you're kind of getting this a couple of hours after I went live. I'm going live on Facebook right now to deliver this podcast because I want as many people as possible to get this message. There has been so much going on in Washington, D.C., in Iowa, that I just wanted to come live to everyone today and to just share, kind of give you an up the minute kind of play by play of what's going on in the pro-life movement. So stay tuned. There's a lot I have to go through. Okay. So I have been traveling this week, and so if you follow my Instagram account, I do apologize because I've been kind of lazy. I've been posting a lot of pictures because one, I just don't like to take like selfies of myself, and I get really like embarrassed if I'm at an airport taking a selfie of myself. So when I travel, it's much easier for me just to take a screenshot from my Twitter and put it on my Instagram. So I apologize. My Instagram account this week is just basically my Twitter, but I want to get that information out to you without having to like take a picture of myself when I'm by myself sitting in an airport. But anyway, so first, let's talk about Iowa. The caucuses. What a disaster. Okay, so the Democrats and the Republicans, the way they do primaries in Iowa and they do in other states is they have these caucuses, and it's this super confusing process. It's kind of crazy. But the real winner of Iowa this week was Donald Trump. Not only did he have record turnout of Republicans who came out to support him in the Republican caucuses, but the Democrats, we still don't actually know who won the Iowa Democratic caucus. Donald Trump, really, the president, is the winner of the Democratic caucus because it is proof that the Democrats don't have it together. I mean, they're still kind of saying they have inaccurate results, and they've released, some of the results, and it's like but then they said, oh, but the app didn't fail, but we can't all the results aren't tallied. The whole thing doesn't make sense, and there's all kinds of conspiracy theories. I think probably the most likely reason is that Joe Biden got trounced and he's like in fourth place, and the establishment who doesn't want Biden or doesn't want Bernie or Elizabeth Warren because they're open socialists, or Buttigieg because he has like no experience. The establishment wants Joe Biden to be the candidate, and he got, so far with the results that Harvard released, he came in fourth place. So Pete Buttigieg, and like the ultimate millennial move is what I've heard it's been called, was declaring victory the actual Monday night of the caucus, even though no one else could say anything. But that's actually a really great campaign move and political move in general because just declare it, and they will come. And the left does this all the time. I go to feminist majority conferences undercover, and they'll have these signs like "We are the majority," and they're clearly not. But whatever. Okay, so President Trump was the clear winner of the Iowa caucuses for both the Democrats and the Republicans. And so the other thing that I was thinking about, Tuesday, as I was kind of processing all the stuff that happened, I'm sorry, I guess the caucus was Tuesday. So Wednesday, I was at the airport and I was reading all these reports about the caucuses and all the craziness. What was really interesting, I was thinking about, is so much of what Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are talking about is Medicare for all and repealing the, our current healthcare system, of doing away with private insurance, which for somebody like me who has 2 children with cystic fibrosis, it is absolute terrifying. The fact that the government wants to come in and control our healthcare and then decide what drugs that my kids are able to receive is absolutely terrifying. And I've talked about it time and time again. But what was really scary when I was thinking about, all of the craziness that's happening in Iowa, is like, these are the very same people that are trying to say that to trust them with the entire federal government, with the entire healthcare system. They can't even figure out who won their own caucus in Iowa, but they somehow want control of our entire healthcare system, which is so frustrating, so frustrating. The other, I think the other thing coming from Iowa, and this was kind of our statement going into the caucuses on Tuesday night, was that really no matter who won, babies were going to lose in Iowa. And I think that's a really sad reflection of the state of the Democratic Party today, where you have, every single candidate who is running for president under the Democratic ticket has openly promised. Every single candidate who's running for president for the Democratic ticket is openly promising to support abortion on demand in all 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason. Even if the mom finds out she's pregnant with a girl and doesn't want to have a girl, they still support that mother's decision to end the life of her baby girl. And they want to do it with taxpayer funds. And they've been talking about this a lot, of how it's unfair that the Hyde Amendment discriminates against poor women, because the Hyde Amendment, which we've had since, I think, 1976, prevents taxpayer dollars from funding abortions in Medicaid, which Medicaid is different than Medicare. Medicare is for older people, retired people. Medicaid is insurance, government insurance for those who can't afford insurance. And so the Hyde Amendment says that federal dollars that go to states to pay for Medicaid can't be used for abortions. However, that doesn't mean that the state taxpayer dollars can't be used to fund abortions. And so what happens with Medicaid, the money comes from the feds and then it's matched by the states, and it's called like a matching grant. It's essentially a matching grant. And so you do actually have states like New York and California and New Jersey, and heck, I think even West Virginia was funding abortions with state taxpayer dollars. But anyway, regardless of who ultimately becomes the winner of the Iowa caucuses, which at this point, it's just like a joke, regardless, babies will lose, because every single candidate running for president of the United States on the Democratic ticket is 100% pro-abortion. They are not pro-choice. They are not just simply putting up with abortion because, they might feel uncomfortable with abortion. They are open abortion advocates. They are unashamed abortion advocates. And you saw that very clearly just a week or so ago when Mayor Pete told Kristen Day, the other Kristen in the pro-life movement, the executive director of Democrats for Life at the Fox News town hall, that there was no place for pro-life Democrats in his party, in the Democratic Party, which is complete crap, which is crazy considering over a third of Democrats are self-described pro-lifers. Who do you think the pro-lifers are going to be targeting in the 2020 election? You tell me. Okay, so Iowa, a disaster. Babies are going to lose, regardless who ultimately gets declared the winner. And I think Iowa is a perfect example of why the Democratic Party, and quite frankly, while any politician should not have the ability, should not have the power to determine what drugs that you get, that your loved ones get, what drugs my children are allowed to have or not have, they have no business doing it. They can't even run their own caucus. Okay, State of the Union. State of the Union. Okay, so you have to think about when I started Students for Life in 2006, and this was even until very recently, pro-lifers, we would go to events and it was always like, pro-lifers were kind of like, sit at the little kid table. Like, yeah, you're part of the, conservative movement, but we don't talk about, we're kind of secret friends. We don't talk about those issues publicly. And still to this day, a lot of people in the GOP kind of quote unquote consultant class in Washington, D.C., who are pro-choice, pro-abortion themselves and uncomfortable with abortion, they'll school candidates and tell candidates not to talk about, social issues, like, only talk about taxes. And we've been saying in the pro-life movement for years, like, no, hello, this is a winning issue. Like, we have a whole army of people, this army of love that on Saturday mornings, no matter if it's rain, sleet, or snow, no matter if it's negative 10 degrees or 110, will go out and peacefully pray in front of abortion facilities. We counsel, we give guidance, we ask the women who are walking in the abortion facility who feel like they have no other option, that they're this ultimate moment of desperation. We're the ones who sacrifice and give and do this, right? So my argument to candidates and to political, campaign folks, the politicos for years has been, this is an untapped army of resources because there is nobody more dedicated than pro-lifers because we know what's at stake when it comes to elections. It's not merely like our pocketbooks and, a 15% increase on taxes or whatever. Like, no, it's life or death. It's human life or death. And so this is something that we're very passionate about. So finally, President Trump, his campaign, his administration gets it. Last night, the State of the Union, the leader of the free world, the President of the United States of America, made a definitive statement urging the entire Congress to stand with him in a bipartisan measure to ban late-term abortion. Something with, by the way, like 90% of Americans agree with. You have to think about this. Late-term abortion, which, by the way, the abortion left is now saying doesn't exist, that late-term abortion doesn't exist, which it does. You can go to Google and you can Google, the Albuquerque Southwest Women's Option Center. Albuquerque is the late-term abortion capital of the world. You can Google Dr. William Carhart, who's in Nebraska and Maryland committing late-term abortions. You can Google these late-term abortionists. But I find it fascinating that the left says that they don't exist. But then now they're saying, you can't say late-term. That now they're used to using the words just late abortion. They're trying to say that, right? Yesterday, the President of the United States challenged Congress to finally end late-term abortion, which, by the way, even moderate Democrats, pro-choice Democrats have said it would be a smart move for the Democratic Party because they're losing in Rust Belt states like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. They almost lost Minnesota, and it's because people aren't comfortable with the extremism of the Democratic Party when it comes to abortion. The safe, legal, and rare mantra of Bill Clinton is no more, baby. They stripped that out in 2016. The actual platform of the DNC now is abortion whenever, wherever, all 9 months of pregnancy for whatever reason, taxpayer funded. That was as of the 2016 Democratic Convention. Okay, so this is the most extreme we've ever seen, and it's just crazy. And then you look at the polls and you can see the majority of Americans, no matter how they call themselves, whether they call themselves pro-life or pro-choice. And we've talked about that before on this podcast, right? There's a lot of confusion as to what is pro-life and what is pro-choice. And it's really a sad, I think, indictment of what we've failed to do in the pro-life movement, of telling our story, our narrative, and getting our brand out there. But regardless of that, when you actually ask people the question about late-term abortion, 90% of Americans agree with us that abortion shouldn't be legal. That's crazy, that there's no reason that a woman should be able to have a third trimester abortion or even a second trimester abortion. What's interesting is you'll often hear is this argument of, well, it's needed because it's, these are babies who were wanted, which, that somehow makes it different. But there are medical abnormalities, which don't get me started about this medical abnormalities, this language of, okay, there's nothing ever wrong with a baby medically, genetically, that would necessitate you taking a needle, stabbing it through the mother's stomach, his or her mother's stomach, piercing his heart, and causing a cardiac arrest. There's no reason for that. Ever. And you can ask many pro-life doctors this, right? Abortion is never medically necessary. If there is legitimate and serious concerns that the mother may die because she continues to gestate her child within her, carry a child within her, what a pro-life doctor would do is say, look, we're going to treat 2 patients and we're going to deliver the baby as early as possible and give that child, as late as possible. They'll kind of wait. They put her on bed rest and they do everything they can. And then they get to the moment and they're like, okay, we have to deliver. They deliver the child. They don't tear the child apart, rip the baby limb from limb. They don't induce cardiac arrest. No, they deliver the child through C-section. And then they have neonatologists there. They have everyone there to give the child best chance at life. That's what you do. That's what happens if there is an actual real threat to the mother, okay? So last night, President Trump showed the whole world what we're talking about when we're talking about late-term abortion. He had a little girl, Ellie, who is one of the youngest youngest premature babies that was ever born who survived. She was born at 21 weeks, 6 days. Think about that. At 5 months of pregnancy, you go in and you get the gender reveal ultrasound. That's, to me, was like so exciting. Now, my good friend Brenton Omoro, who used to work for Students 5, he and his wife Kate are refusing to figure out the sex of their little boy or girl. And it's driving me crazy. She's doing 2 more months. I'm like, how do you not know? That drives me nuts. But anyway, I would like count down the days to that week 20 to go into that ultrasound to find out, boy or girl. Is it Gunner? Is it Gracie? Is it Bear? I always had names picked out beforehand, you know. He has, last night in the balcony, President Trump invited little Ellie there, who was one of the youngest surviving premature babies, who, by the way, yet today when I was in Minnesota, they killed babies older than when Ellie was born. And it was illegal because in Minnesota, abortion's legal up to 24 weeks, 2.5 weeks later than when little Ellie was born and survived. So yesterday, the president stands up and he says, I want Congress to pass $50 million for research for neonatologists to make sure these premature children survive, which all of us know someone who was probably born premature thanks to medical advancements. So then Nancy Pelosi had to like clap for that. And then he says, and now I'm calling on you, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, to ban late-term abortion. Stone cold silence, Nancy. Democrats said nothing. And then Elise Hogue and all of these other, pro-abortion leaders on Twitter going, President Trump was using this little girl and Ellie, and somehow they were trying to express like support for Ellie, but then in the next tweet, express support for late-term abortion. Well, you can't have it both ways here, folks. Either Ellie's life mattered and was valuable, and we should have spent whatever, I don't know what was spent to sustain her life, to treat her, but I'm sure taxpayers had to pay for that at some point. If she was on her, state Medicaid, a lot of times if children have complex medical illnesses, the state Medicaid will come in and help supplement because the private health insurance wants help. And then a lot of times the premiums are very high for parents, right? So at one hand, you had the state and the doctors and everyone doing probably what they can to keep Ellie alive. And abortion supporters trying to say, well, her life mattered. But then on the other hand, other babies don't matter. Even babies who are older than Ellie don't matter. They can't have it both ways. The fact of the matter is, and we saw this very clearly at the March for Life, the abortion survivors, Claire and Melissa Oden, who, Claire Caldwell, who went up and talked about how they survived abortion, these faces of choice. And that Super Bowl ad that was the NFL banned, right? The faces of choice, meet the faces of choice, which would have been such a powerful Super Bowl commercial, which wasn't graphic at all. I don't even think it said the word abortion in it, right? But those faces, those human beings are this direct counter to what the abortion lobby says of it's a blob of tissue, it doesn't matter, it's a potential human, to say, no, actually, this is a human being that matters, that has value, that has dignity. Those abortion survivors they are like some of our best spokespersons, right, for our cause. So is Ellie. So is every single child who is born prematurely in the United States, because they are a direct counter to what the abortion industry says. So I thought last night was great. The other thing that I love that the president did, he talked about paid family leave. So at Students for Life, we're all about creating and casting this vision for a post-Roe America, because guess what? It's coming. You want to know why we had, that impeachment thing that just ended today? That's my next point. Woohoo. You know why there was this impeachment? Because Democrats are terrified, the left is terrified that President Trump will be reelected and Roe versus Wade will fall. They are terrified of it. They know if Roe and Doe fall, the two decisions that legalize abortion on demand for any reason in all 9 months, once that decision goes back to the states and states to get to decide, multiple states will make abortion illegal, or they'll severely restrict abortion, which will limit women's freedom, right? Access to reproductive rights. So why do we have this impeachment? Because Democrats are terrified. That's exactly why. But then So we know, by the way, hopefully we have a pro-life victory in 2020, but we know Roe versus Wade's going to go. Even the left is saying, there's ardent abortion supporters like Robin Marty who've said, yeah, it's going to go, and it's probably not a bad thing that it goes, right? So even abortion supporters are saying Roe is going to fall. So one of the things we have to do as pro-lifers is start having these critical conversations about, are we ready? We have 2,600 pregnancy resource centers and maternity homes spread out across the United States, and we have all of these laws, but do women know where to go? Do they know what the laws are? Do they know that they can't be discriminated against at their university for being pregnant? Do they know they can't be discriminated against in the workplace? Do they know they can take, this leave or that leave? Do they know this resource exists in the community? And a lot of times they don't know. We find this all the time on college campuses, that even though there are state and federal mandated resources that have to be provided, a lot of times she doesn't know. She doesn't even know it exists. And so I think that's actually one of our bigger problems in the pro-life movement is when we talk about getting ready for a post-Roe America. We need to be better marketers. We need to think of ourselves as marketers for her, right? To say, you are empowered and here's all the resources that you have. Well, one of the things we need in that toolkit is paid family leave. So Students for Life, it's kind of, I'm bragging, I'm sorry, but this spring we actually were the first pro-life or national pro-life organization to have a lobby day on paid family leave. So Students for Life Action, our sister 501c4 organization, which people should donate to because, it's kind of election year, studentslifeaction.org. So Students for Life Action, we had our state captains flying from across the country, and we went and met with Democrats and Republicans. And our talking points were very simple. It's like, look, there's Democratic plans and there's Republican plans for paid family leave. We're not going to get into all those details. You're the ones being elected and being paid a bunch of money here on Capitol Hill. You figure it out. Go ahead, figure it out. But we want it done. There's no reason why we shouldn't have a federal paid family leave policy. And I've spoken openly and written op-eds and things like that. I am very much in favor of a conservative policy where if you're putting money into Social Security with your payroll tax, which we all do, if you get a paycheck, you're putting money into the Social Security Trust Fund. You should have the ability to take that money out and use it to supplement your income when you have to go on maternity leave or paternity leave if you're a man. It's kind of crazy. We have to wait till you're 67 or gosh, I'll probably be 70 before I can use it. So yeah, paid family leave, it should happen. It should definitely happen. So it was so exciting to see the president say that. I found it kind of, I was actually speaking to 100 seminarians during the State of the Union. So my phone was kind of blowing up. So I had to watch a lot of the recap, but I found it interesting to watch Nancy Pelosi have to clap and kind of hear how the Democrats had to handle these very common sense policy proposals that the vast majority of Americans agree with, and how they had to deal with that because they're supposed to hate Donald Trump and everything he stands for. Okay. So State of the Union, huge win. I think it was an epic moment for the pro-life movement to go from, we would sit in rooms and we were told to sit at the little kids table, that no one wanted to talk about the abortion issue, that the abortion issue was bad, it hurts in elections, to see that the President of the United States actually talk about it and be so strong and fierce and courageous in his language in front of half of a room which hated him, which, by the way, you want to talk about, I go and speak on these campuses, and it can be hard. It can be intimidating sometimes when you're sitting there and people are staring at you like this and making faces at you. They're rolling their eyes at you the whole time. I've had people go, wow, you seem really angry in that talk. I'm like, yeah, because you didn't hear the 45 minutes before whatever stupid question was lobbed at me when they were rolling their eyes, and I had to look at them in the face the whole time they were doing that. So by the way, what he does and what any president does at the State of the Union when half the room clearly shooting daggers at them is actually pretty crazy and very courageous. But to have the fact that we had a United States president, the leader of the free world, so openly advocate for the end of late-term abortion, I think that was a significant moment for our pro-life movement, to be honest with you. I think it showed that we've arrived, that we are taken seriously. And guess what? All the polls are showing, late-term abortion actually is a winning issue. That it motivates donors, especially motivates donors. It motivates voters, and it motivates this key group, white suburban women. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about late-term abortion in the election coming up, and that's good. That's good. I think the more we have to make the Democratic Party and the abortion extremists justify their position on late-term abortion, the more we're going to win, because guess what? We win all day long anytime we talk about the horrific nature of abortion, because all we're doing is shining the light of truth. And when you have that light, you have a candle, you have your iPhone on, you go into a dark room, what happens? The light makes the dark flee. Dark never stands a damn chance. Okay? So that's good. We're going to be talking about this a lot. And I think it's very good. Babies will be saved. And we will get ultimately closer to our goal of abolishing abortion in our lifetime, making it illegal and unthinkable. And by the way, I know I say the word Democrats a lot, and people say, well, that's not fair. I'm a Democrat. Good for you. Be a Democrat. Be a pro-life Democrat. I don't really care what you call yourself. If you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, as long as you always vote pro-life first. That's what I care about. I get very upset when people take their, party, and their party is above their cause. It's above their mission. My mission is to abolish abortion. And I don't care what party I have beside my name. It doesn't matter at all. It's about electing the candidate that's going to advance this cause, that's going to end the injustice of abortion, which is the greatest human rights atrocity our world faces today. There is no other issue. There is no other thing that kills more people, human beings every day in America and across the globe than abortion. In fact, during the State of Union, hundreds of babies died. 100 babies die every single hour just in America. The world, it's thousands per hour. So I don't want people to get upset that I'm saying Democrats or whatever, I'm disparaging Democrats. I don't care, you can be a Democrat. And in fact, as pro-lifers, and I've said this openly for many years, we actually want more pro-life Democrats, right? We need more pro-life Democrats, because we'll know we've really won when Republicans and Democrats fight for our votes. Then Republicans can't take advantage of us and promise to be pro-life, and then when they get elected, defunding Planned Parenthood's too hard, Kristen. I think I have it on my laptop here. Don't get me started about the betrayals of the Republican Party on defunding Planned Parenthood. They should do it. And actually, President Trump could do it through an executive order. Still working on that. Okay, impeachment, I have to wrap up because I'm trying to keep my kids quiet. But it's not going to last much longer because I haven't been here and I fed them Chick-fil-A and they've had lots of sugar. Impeachment today, I was on the plane. I was so obnoxious because I was watching it. It happened through Twitter, actually. As I said earlier, the impeachment was all about abortion. I actually think it's pretty interesting. And Jonathan was here watching the impeachment, the vote in the Senate. The two votes with my oldest son, Gunnar. And Gunnar remarked to Jonathan how it was interesting that everybody with a D voted for impeachment, voted guilty, and everyone with an R voted not guilty, except for Mitt Romney. Don't get started on that. But it's actually pretty sad because you think about like where we go in the post kind of Trump America. I actually think we're going to see impeachments a lot. I think now we've gotten to the point where discourse has broken down so much. I mean, you saw the decorum breakdown yesterday. You had the woman, the person who's third in line for the presidency, or second in line if something would happen with Donald Trump, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, openly behind his back at the end of his speech, rip up his speech. I mean, like literally there is no decorum left. And civility has totally broken down in Washington, D.C. And I actually think we'll see impeachments more and more, which I guess wouldn't be a bad thing, because if a president's always worried about being impeached, maybe they'll make sure that all the presidents going forward are operating ethically and legally, which, that could have helped us before with some other presidents. But impeachment, all about abortion. Democrats, the pro-abortion lobby, which, owns the Democratic Party, is desperate. And they are terrified of the day we know is coming. They fear it. They fear the day we know is coming. That's Roe and Doe falling. The other sign of desperation you're going to see next week, actually, in the House of Representatives, which I need you all to help us out. Call your House of Representatives member. Call them at their DC office and their district office today, tomorrow, all the way through next week, because what you're going to see next week is the House of Representatives is going to call a vote, and they're going to say that the ERA is ratified because the state of Virginia ratified the ERA. it's meaningless. The time expiration for the ERA to be ratified expired in 1982. 5 states since 1982 have actually rescinded the ratification of the ERA, but that doesn't stop the political left from getting up and declaring that the ERA is ratified. Why do they want the ERA to be ratified, despite the fact that there's 800 laws that protect women and make sure the women are actually treated with equality in the workplace and in schools? And would the ERA would actually nullify all of those laws because you can't have laws that protect one gender over another? Why do the Democrats care about the ERA? Abortion. They already said it. NARAL stupidly sent out a fundraising email this March stating it openly, that the ERA was all about abortion. That's what it's about. Because in states that have passed state versions of the ERA, in Connecticut, New Mexico, their state Supreme Courts found that you had to pay, taxpayers had to therefore pay for abortions because men can't get pregnant, and that's putting women on unequal footing with men. The fact that we're superheroes and we can do something half the population can't do, gestate, lactate, and menstruate, that's actually something good because we're superheroes. And we can multitask and do a bunch of other things better than men. But, that's a different story. Or, maybe we are the better sex. But anyway, the ERA, all about abortion. It's all about abortion. So next week, the House of Representatives is going to do a party line vote. And the Democrats will pass a resolution saying the 1982 time limit was unconstitutional. And they're going to say, Nancy Pelosi is going to get up there and say, the ERA is in the Constitution. Nope. It's gonna be this huge judicial fight. It'll probably end up the Supreme Court. The facts are not in their corner at all. But for them, it's all about the appearance. They hope if they say it more and more and more and more, just like with Mayor Pete claiming victory, they hope the more they say it, then it will become a reality. This is actually a very common political tactic. It's a very common political tactic. All right, the other thing I want to talk about. So impeachment, it was all about abortion. Why is it all about abortion? Because President Trump is the most anti-abortion president we've ever had in the history of the United States of America. He is. I love George W. Bush. I worked for him. I thought he was so cute. I loved President Reagan and many things he did. He was the only sitting president ever to write a book against abortion. But when you add up judges, when you add up actions, President Trump and his administration have done more than any other sitting president in history in the United States to help us in our mission to abolish abortion. Love him or hate him. I don't follow his Twitter most of the time. I don't actually think I follow his Twitter at all. It's not about the tweets. It's about his actions. And he is the most pro-life president, most anti-abortion president. So I've been reading a lot of comments online lately saying he's not pro-life. He puts kids in cages. One, first of all, that whole photo op thing that went viral, check the timestamp on that because those photos were taken when President Obama was president, but no one actually seemed to care then. But I think, we know as human beings, all of us, regardless if you're pro-life or pro-abortion, no one believes that children belong in cages or jail cells. But there is a real problem when people cross the border illegally with their children and risk them and their children's lives to cross the border. And the parents are arrested, just like how when parents do illegal things here in the United States, they're arrested. But their children aren't put, in detention centers. Usually they're with a foster home. They become wards of the state or guardian or family guardian will help take them. But it's a little different at the border when you have no family. But I'm not justifying this because I don't think kids ever belong in cages or jail cells. And I think that's always wrong. And I think we need to do better. And we need to hold our public officials accountable to finding solutions. And that doesn't mean open borders and all those other things. But don't muddy up pro-life with other issues. That's kind of my final thing I want to say today is President Trump is the most anti-abortion president we've ever had, and he is the most pro-life president, regardless of whether or not you personally like him or not. He is. By his actions, he is. Don't try to say, oh, pro-life means this, this, and this. Don't do it. It never works out. The pro-life movement has historically always been anti-abortion, anti-euthanasia, assisted suicide, infanticide, which we haven't had to talk about too much, but now I guess we do because the Democrats are so extreme. And we started talking about, embryonic stem cell research. We're against the killing of innocent human beings simply because of their size, their location, their age, their abilities. That's what we're against. And that's what we fight for, to end those injustices. There are a lot of injustices that happen in our world and in America, but we don't lump them all into one kind of cause and say you have to be for all these things. Because if you did, we would never get anything done. We fight in the pro-life movement about the strategies for how to end abortion. Can you imagine if we had to agree on strategies for how to end hunger and homelessness and fix our education system and end poverty and end the death penalty, end sex trafficking, and end war, and end abortion? Do you think we'd ever come to agreement about anything? And by the way, do you think we'd actually ever get anything done? Because we'd be fighting all day. Our resources, our time would always have to be split up to all these other issues that are important and we should care about, especially as Christians, we should care about. But don't try to say, oh, President Trump isn't pro-life. Pro-life means all of these things. Because guess what? To another person, pro-life means something else to somebody else. Then it doesn't mean anything. That's actually why Students for Life, a lot of times you'll hear me use anti-abortion, just because a lot of times students on campuses don't even know what pro-life means anymore, because there's people who openly advocate for abortion who now call themselves pro-life. We have to fight for that and say, no, this is what pro-life is, and define it. But a lot of times I just don't have time for that, so I just say anti-abortion. But don't fall into that trap of well, this is what pro-life is. No. Abortion is the world's greatest human rights atrocity. Nothing, as I said earlier, kills more people every single day in the United States and around the world than abortion. It deserves its own damn cause. It's not that it's more important or more pressing than other issues. I think it is more pressing than some issues, but there are other big moral issues that we need to care about, and I think they carry the same weight, but they also have their own cause. No one ever goes to the anti-sex trafficking organizations and demands that they fight 10 other issues. No one ever does that, which, you can think about pornography, abortion, a lot of things actually go into sex trafficking, but no one ever said they have to do that. But somehow in the pro-life movement, we let others tell us, well, you're not really pro-life and you do this, this, and this. And then we start telling ourselves it. I mean, it's crazy. President Trump, love him or hate him, is the most anti-abortion president ever. And I am proud to say that he's the president of the United States of America. And I was proud of his State of the Union last night. And so I think this year is going to be an incredible year for the pro-life movement. If you don't like politics, I've warned you before. I'm going to warn you again. This is not going to be your year. We're going to talk a lot about politics. And politics isn't the only place we fight in the pro-life movement. You don't have to like politics. This issue is not a political issue. This is a political episode of my podcast, but this isn't a political issue. This is a human rights issue, but one place we fight is in the political realm, because we know laws matter. Laws save lives. Sadly, a lot of people drive their morality from the legality. And so as long as abortion's legal, people will think it's moral. They shouldn't. And if they're students of history, my God, they should not do that, but they do. That's why we say we don't fight just to make abortion unthinkable. We also fight to make it legal. So thanks, guys, for tuning in for this special edition of Explicitly Pro-Life, my live edition of the podcast. For all of you who are watching on Facebook, if you want to tell your friends to listen, or if you just want to get more information and you want to hear my voice on a weekly basis, make sure you subscribe to Explicitly Pro-Life on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you get your podcasts on. That I'm there. I even have a YouTube for the videos that we do for the podcast. So make sure you subscribe, spread the word, tell your friends. We have a lot to talk about this year, and I actually have some incredible guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. So I hope you will subscribe and tell your friends.